The girl is the only female in the interstellar realm with 3S level psychic power. Even the 7 great war god marshals are reverent and respectful toward her, only because their psychic turmoil can be soothed by the girl alone. Thus, relying on being the sole possessor of 3S level psychic power, she not only torments them in every way to satisfy her own peculiar tastes, but also humiliates them daily, to the extent that the big shots across the stars all hate her to the bone. And Kai Wan from Blue Star unexpectedly transmigrated into this vicious female supporting character, with the same name. Aren't we going to start yet? Kai Wan was pulled back from her thoughts by the words carrying a hint of coldness. She looked at the black-haired sentinel before her. 2 meters tall with long legs, dressed in black leather combat gear, giving off an intangible sense of pressure. He was precisely Shi Yi, the supreme commander of K1 base, spiritual entity Black Wolf King. Ability, Control. By now he had already skillfully taken off his upper garment, revealing his wheat-toned pectoral muscles and 8-pack abs. Let's start. Kai Wan recalled that the original host had arranged with Shi Yi yesterday to come today. For psychic soothing, she hurriedly pretended to be calm, groping on the table for the tools used for soothing. Black leather whip, handcuffs and chains, an unknown black iron rod. Damn, these things don't look like they're for soothing people either. Host, stand tall, don't be a coward. Otherwise your identity will be doubted. The system's voice once again pulled Kai Wan's thoughts back to reality. She looked up at the Sentinel commander before her. A 3S level colossal Black Wolf King spiritual entity emerged above his head. Its crimson wolf eyes were dangerously bloodthirsty. She remembered the original owner had once soothed this Sentinel commander named Shi Yi. The memory of the sound of a whip cracking loudly now seemed to slap across Kai Wan's face. She followed through, raising the whip and looking at Shi Yi. Seeing her hesitant movements, Shi Yi lowered his gaze and stepped closer to her, one step at a time. Are these tools no longer enough to satisfy you? Want to try something new? And no, of course not. Kai Wan raised the black whip. Then she closed her eyes tightly. Trembling, she swung it down. Host, what are you doing? According to the original plot, in 162 days, the female lead will descend from the heavens with a golden finger, exposing your identity as a fake heiress. Because of this, you will be erased from the entire star system. So, to survive until the end, you must redeem yourself before the female lead arrives. Change the fate of the vicious supporting female character. Holy shit. Kai Wan's whip, halfway down, abruptly changed direction and lashed toward herself. With a heavy, she was struck and fell straight to the ground. In the last second before losing consciousness, Kai Wan looked with difficulty at the utterly shocked Shi Yi. I've reformed. This counts as avenging you. Then she completely passed out. When Kai Wan woke up again, she was lying in an entirely milky white medical room. After discovering she had awakened, a medic quickly walked over. Esteemed guide Kai Wan, you're finally awake. The main force is to assemble and depart today. But the commander's spiritual bodies are still somewhat agitated. They urgently need your guidance. Kai Wan knew what he was going to say. In recent millennia, the star system has been eroded by pollution. Humans have awakened to special types of people, sentinels and guides. Sentinels have highly developed senses, possess formidable combat strength, and can even evolve special abilities. However, due to their overly heightened perception, their spiritual bodies are very prone to becoming agitated due to instability. Guides are the only ones who can soothe the spiritual bodies of sentinels. The original host was the only 3S level guide in the star system. And currently, the commanders of the 7 major bases in the star system are all 3S level sentinels. Therefore, the task of spiritually soothing the commanders could only be done by her. As the medical bay door opened, Kai Wan followed the medic out. Outside were still the milky white walls and structures like something from a sci-fi movie. A large number of sentinels were queuing here for registration and soothing. But upon seeing Kai Wan, this SSS level guide, they showed no desire at all. It was truly because her performance at the temporary base over these past 18 days had been too poor. Under various gazes, Kai Wan could only silently quicken her pace. Finally, the medic brought her to the conference room. 7 commanders, either standing or sitting, all looked at Kai Wan. What are you doing here? The gray-haired man leaning back in his chair couldn't hide the disgust in his eyes. His name is Pei Yuan, and his spiritual entity is a falcon, the highest-ranking sentinel commander of base K3. Ability, teleportation. As soon as the question was asked, before Kai Wan could even answer, another man with cool blue hair leisurely spoke up. We are in a meeting. Yenki's spiritual entity is a Kun whale, the highest ranking commander of base B6. Ability, Precognition. Commanders, I am here to soothe your mental energies. Please release your spiritual entities. A scoffing laugh rang out. It seems Guide Kaiwan has researched a new way to play. Kaiwan knew explaining would be useless. She simply released her mental energy. The powerful 3S level mental energy possessed an extremely strong soothing quality. Like unwinding silk from a cocoon, it began to guide their spiritual entities. Even though these men were unwilling. In the face of a 3S level guide's mental energy, their spiritual entities were compelled to emerge. After a simple round of guidance, she fled as if escaping, leaving only the 7 commanders with varied expressions. Continue. The highest-ranking commander of base A3, Li Su, whose spiritual entity is a black lion, said flatly, to spend even one more minute thinking about her is a waste of time. Once she left the conference room, the medic quickly approached again. But Guide Kaiwan, such soothing won't last very long. I know. I can extract guide hormones for them. The medic was taken aback upon hearing this. Really, Guide Kaiwan? That's wonderful then. As soon as she entered the guide hormone extraction room, Kaiwan cooperated fully and had her blood drawn. Guide hormone is essentially extracted from female blood and then processed into portable tube hormones. The original host had previously refused to provide guide hormone here, precisely to force them to grovel at her feet and be toyed with by her. But today, she could no longer afford to care about such things. She directly had 1,000 milliliters of blood drawn in one go. After finishing, her head felt somewhat dizzy. Leaning against the wall, she slowly made her way back to her room. As she lay on the bed in a dazed state, she seemed to hear a faint noise. Lifting her eyes, she saw the sentinel standing by the bed, looking at her coldly. His combat uniform was sharply tailored, sleek and efficient, exuding the composure and sense of control of a high-ranking authority. At this moment, those golden eyes were coldly fixed on her. It was Kang Lin. His spiritual entity was a golden dragon, the supreme commander of A1 base, possessing the instant kill ability. Also the only Super SS level sentinel among the 7 commanders. Kaiwan was no longer sleepy at all. She shuddered in fright. Her gaze passed over his tall figure to the destroyed glass room behind him. Dead memories began to assault her wildly. It turned out the original host had previously thought King Lin was straightforward and strong-willed, unlike others who fawned over her in every possible way. So she had deceived him by saying she would provide soothing, summoning him to her room. In reality, he was locked in a glass room. The release accelerator intensified the agitation of his spiritual body. By the time his subordinates found him, he had even passed out in a wretched state. Kaiwan wanted to say something, but her mouth was tightly covered by him. She frantically called out to the system in her heart. But the system's voice was lazy, carrying a hint of a nasal tone as if just waking up. There's no way, host, debts have to be repaid. Just endure it. At most, he'll force you to use your soothing abilities. He won't do anything to you. He dislikes you too much to bother. Kaiwan shook her head, trying to break free from his control. But having just had her blood drawn, she now had no strength left in her body. Her spiritual energy was also in a weakened state. Kang Lin sneered. Such a fearful expression is rare to see on you. Too bad the acting is too clumsy. With that, he pressed her firmly onto the bed, forcibly invading her mental landscape. Kaiwan's mental landscape, weakened from excessive blood drawing, was forcibly opened. Her whole body trembled and she whimpered. Kang Lin didn't even look at her. As if she were some filthy existence, his spiritual body rampaged through her mental landscape, then violently withdrew in the end. Before leaving, looking at Kaiwan's tear-reddened eyes and her fragile, helpless face, Kang Lin crossed his arms and said coldly, "Oh, changing tactics now? Just had my mental landscape invaded. For a 3S glass guide like you, it's not that big of a deal. Stop pretending to be pitiful." With that, he got up and left Kaiwan's room. Only after he left did Kaiwan snivel and crawl out of bed. Dragging her somewhat weak body, she straightened her slightly disheveled clothes and hair. "Congratulations, host, you have obtained a reward skill. Skill name. Little old me, a guide, just loves comforting sentinels the most. With this skill, the host will increase her own combat power value when comforting sentinels in the future. Host's current information panel 1. Kaiwan. Mental power 3S glass. Combat power value 0. My combat power value is only O. In the novel, the female lead has mental power. Super SSS glass combat power value. The female lead's configuration is considered top tier. Isn't my current configuration a bit low? Suddenly, the military assembly message rang out on the light brain. Kaiwan didn't dare hesitate and quickly straightened her attire, walking out. By now, most sentinels outside the base had already assembled. This temporary alliance formed by 7 top interstellar bases is formidable in every aspect. Guide Kaiwan. Which team will you be joining? Following the base inspection captain's question, Kaiwan looked at the 7 male leads' eyes filled with disgust. In the previous 3 missions they embarked on, she caused plenty of trouble. Yet they desperately needed her, an SSS glass guide. I can only endure her various atrocious behaviors. Kaiwan swallowed hard. I'll go with Commander Chi Yi and the others. Chi's spiritual entity is a silver python. The highest commander of C3 base has the psychic ability to read minds. At that moment, Kaiwan hoped that Chi Yi could read her mind, to know that she had truly turned over a new leaf. Then the surveillance team leader led Kaiwan toward the main force of C3 base. Guides usually ride in the lead vehicle with the commander, to conveniently observe the overall situation and provide spiritual barriers in time. And as Kaiwan passed by the A1 base contingent led by Kang Lin had not yet boarded the vehicle at that moment. He leaned against the vehicle body, chewing gum in his mouth. Having just invaded Kaiwan's spiritual landscape, he now felt completely refreshed. His cold, arrogant golden eyes glanced at Kaiwan as she gradually approached. Kaiwan was clearly extremely fearful and resistant. She lowered her head and quickened her pace, seeing her like this. Kang Lin's lips curled into a smile. It's right that she's afraid of him. Commanders, before departing, take the latest guide serum with you. This is the guide serum just drawn from Guide Kaiwan. A full 1,000 milliliters of blood was drawn. Please use it sparingly, everyone. Hearing the medic's words, Kang Lin's expression changed. She had 1,000 milliliters of blood drawn. Her extreme resistance and fragility just now. And her crying flashed through his mind. 1,000 milliliters would weaken a guide's spiritual landscape. Forced pacification might be something they couldn't withstand. Kang Lin took the guide serum, looking at Kaiwan's receding figure. Her gaze flickered. But in the end, she didn't say anything. Even so, that was what she deserved. When Kaiwan reached the motorcade of the C3 base, looking at the rows of dark green light-armored vehicles imprinted with silver serpent patterns, and Chi Yi with crew member Kang Lin sitting there supporting his head, she didn't speak, just cautiously walked in, sitting quietly in the corner farthest from him. This commander has mysophobia. But the original owner threw his favorite dagger into a cesspit. It is said that dagger held special meaning for him. He forced himself, overcoming his intense mysophobia, to retrieve that dagger, cleaning it inside and out for an entire day. And ever since that incident, he has loathed the original owner to the extreme, maintaining a distance of over 3 meters from me at all times. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee I won't violate interstellar law and kill you here. Kaiwan's heart skipped a beat. So, does that mean it's still not too late to regret and change teams now? When the motorcade drove into the lost city, the 7 teams dispersed and headed towards various districts, and the C3 base motorcade that Kaiwan was in was heading towards District 04, the most heavily polluted area. Kaiwan was somewhat nervous, because on the window behind her, a human contaminant was frantically attacking the glass. The driver of the light-armored vehicle was very experienced. He made a sharp turn, flinging the contaminant away. But Kaiwan, caught off guard, was thrown forward by the tremendous force of the impact. She slammed hard into Chi's embrace. Her cheek collided with his broad pectoral muscles due to the strong inertia. Lifting her eyes, she met a pair of cold, green eyes that seemed capable of killing her. She immediately bristled like a startled kitten, almost leaping away from him, and then sat at the other end of the troop compartment, maintaining a distance of 3 meters from him. Sorry. Chi's jawline shifted slightly. He straightened his clothes, which had been somewhat distorted by her tugging. His well-defined hand adjusted the fabric over his chest. Seeing this, Kaiwan fumed, her little face puffing up. Was she some kind of garbage that would dirty whatever she touched? When the convoy drove into the destination, Chi took the lead, guiding the team out of the vehicle. As a guide, Kaiwan was protected by the squad of sentinels. Amidst the tall sentinel team, each nearly 2 meters in height, she held her survival firearm and looked toward the building ahead. It was a large ore collection factory backed against a mine shaft. The factory gate was decayed and dilapidated. Passing through the factory's front hall, Chi directed everyone to split into small teams for exploration. Kaiwan remained behind Chi Yi, carefully maintaining the 3-meter distance. As Chi-Yi exited the building, he suddenly sensed movement from one side. Immediately after, a 4-meter-tall polluted beast charged out. It opened its bloody, tiger-like maw and attacked Chi-Yi. It was a 4th-stage polluted entity. Kaiwan immediately released a psychic barrier to assist Chi-Yi in the fight. The spiritual entity of Chi-Yi, the long-extinct Kuya silver python, soared into the air. Materializing into a solid form, it attacked the polluted giant tiger. The silver python leaped up, reaching over 5 meters in height. In just an instant, the tiger's head was caught in the python's jaws. However, unexpectedly from within the polluted mist, several mutated tigers charged out once again. Kaiwan's heart skipped a beat. Yet his hands never stopped moving. 3S level spiritual power, like unraveling silk, continuously provided Chi-Yi with the greatest assistance. Under the support of such formidable spiritual power, both Chi-Yi and his spiritual entity maintained their peak combat strength. The silver python's body expanded once more, with a sweep of its tail. In the blink of an eye, most of the polluted giant tigers were dead. Infected by this blood-boiling battle, Kaiwan's assistance grew increasingly fervent. Under the overflowing spiritual power's soothing influence, Chi's complexion gradually turned unusual. He reverted to human form. The mating heat had been triggered. The muscles in his body trembled uncontrollably. His hand gripping the knife also became somewhat unsteady. He glanced at Kaiwan behind him. His hoarse voice brimmed with killing intent. Kaiwan. Being suddenly called by name like this, Kaiwan thought he wasn't being fervent enough, and hurriedly accelerated the outpouring of his spiritual power. Host, what are you doing? Excessive spiritual power is no longer soothing. It is forcing the sentinel to trigger mating heat, making them go into heat. Stop quickly. Kaiwan's face instantly turned pale. After withdrawing her hand, she looked at the pile of corpses forming a small mountain. Chi-Yi, with a gloomy expression, turned and immediately ran toward the factory building behind him. But before she could run a few steps, her waist was hooked and entangled by a silvery white snake tail. Then she was lifted into the air and dragged backward. The moment she fell to the ground, she met Chi's vertical pupilled green eyes. The mating heat drove his spiritual body to manifest. Even around his neck, a few silvery snake scales were faintly visible. Chi's gaze at Kaiwan seemed as if it could tear her apart instantly. All along the way, she had been very cooperative. So much so that he really thought she had started to behave properly. Never did he expect she was still the same utterly despicable her. She actually triggered his mating heat during his battle, making him go into heat. I think perhaps you still don't fully understand what the nature of a snake is. Facing his sinister questioning, Kaiwan nervously blurted out two words without thinking. Lustful. Suddenly, she seemed to feel an extremely oppressive atmosphere. Realizing she had said the wrong thing again, she burst into tears with a wail. Before she could cry more than a couple of sobs, the snake tail wrapped straight around her neck, covering her mouth. If you keep crying, I'll throw you into the polluted mist. Kaiwan could be certain he would really do it. Seeing her obediently stop crying, Chi-Yi then put her down. A1 base is closest to us. I'll notify them to come pick you up in a couple of days. He would rather switch to a 2S level guide. But Kaiwan panicked when she heard about the A1 base. Isn't that Kanglin's base? That demon who forced her to soothe him. I don't want to go to the A1 base. They have my guide serum. Hearing her words, Chi's hand movements paused slightly. You extracted guide serum? Kaiwan nodded. Her pair of extremely beautiful, large eyes blinked innocently, enough for other teams to last at least a few days. Chi-Yi took a deep breath. He went back and found his adjutant to get a dose of bonding fever suppressant. Afterwards, he led the large troop towards the core area of the mining zone. Polluted entities gradually increased. The real battle was only now beginning. From fighting through the day until night, only then was most of the entire 031 factory cleared. In the polluted world, once night falls, sentinels must rest in groups, because night is the ruling time of polluted entity specters, and also the time when sentinels' spiritual bodies are most vulnerable to being devoured. Since, apart from Kaiwan, there was only one S-level guide accompanying them, the responsibility for the large troop's spiritual barrier fell entirely on Kaiwan. With her 3S-level spiritual power, she could construct a spiritual barrier capable of resisting the vast majority of specters. Inside the spiritual barrier, the sentinels huddled together and began preparing dinner. Guide Kaiwan, come eat with us. The sentinels were quite enthusiastic towards her at this moment. Throughout the day, her tremendous assistance along the way, they all changed their views of her quite a bit. Kaiwan didn't stand on ceremony either. Hearing this, she eagerly and happily joined them, acting as a guide for Kaiwan. A sentry handed over a metal lunchbox. Inside were a few pieces of diamond-shaped meat. "Thank you, what kind of meat is this?" "I'll tell you secretly, it's snake meat," the dark-skinned sentry whispered to Kaiwan. "Don't let the commander know. He hates it the most when we eat snake meat." Hearing this, Kaiwan widened her eyes and couldn't help but laugh. Her adorable way of eating won the favor of many sentries. Suddenly, many tall sentries crowded around her. When Chi Yi, having finished scouting outside, entered the room, he saw the extremely beautiful young guide surrounded by sentries, holding the lunchbox and smiling sweetly. The light cast on her flawless little face added a touch of vividness. Her dazed look had a somewhat silly cuteness. Chi Yi, as if moved by spirits, actually used his mind-reading ability on her. "Wow, this snake meat is really delicious. I wonder what Chi's meat would taste like if sliced off and roasted." Immediately, Chi's expression cooled several degrees. "Who among you has been secretly eating snake meat behind my back again?" Noticing his commander's gaze sweeping over him, a pair of green eyes that held no discernible emotion, yet it made him panic intensely. The dark-skinned sentry stood up and blurted out, "It wasn't me." After saying it, he felt he had just acted incredibly foolish. A blatant case of protesting too much. Just about to say something more to smooth things over, Kaiwan beside him picked up where he left off. "It wasn't me either." The dark-skinned sentinel was stunned, looking down at Kaiwan beside him, who was also somewhat flustered. Her big eyes were blinking frantically from fear, her brow slightly furrowed, with a touch of natural airheadedness. The dark-skinned sentinel's pupils instantly dilated. For a moment, he even forgot his fear. "She's so cute." Not just him. All the other sentinels were captivated by Kaiwan's dorky, adorable look. Such a cute guide. How could they have found her annoying before? She's clearly approachable and cute. For a moment, the surrounding sentinels were like a pack of hungry wolves spotting a little lamb. They all fixed their thick, intense gazes on Kaiwan. She could even see some sentinels manifesting. They're constantly wagging tails and twitching ears. "Come here. That's your lounge over there." Looking in the direction Chi Yi pointed, she then remembered. The original owner was the most averse to close contact with these sentinels. Even during rest, she specifically requested a separate lounge. She didn't refuse. After all, she wasn't used to sleeping with a bunch of guys either. By evening, the sentinels gradually began to rest. But Chi Yi didn't sleep. He walked up to the high platform and looked down at the world below. Unclear in the night and polluted haze, countless polluted specters, ferocious and grotesque, attacked him. Most were blocked by Kaiwan's psychic barrier. A very few broke through the barrier and were torn apart by the silver python, his spiritual entity, behind him. Looking at the seemingly increasingly thick psychic barrier before him, Chi's gaze held a slight trace of surprise. The night he fought alongside her last time, her psychic barrier would almost certainly weaken and even shatter as she fell asleep. He hadn't slept the entire night that time, fending off wraiths all night long. But tonight was clearly different. Under the faint light, the petite girl, though nodding off drowsily, still remembered to reinforce the psychic barrier from time to time. His gaze deepened slightly. She really was very different now. This kind of difference gave him a feeling that the person she was now had been replaced by someone else. As he was pondering, he saw her doze off, her head hitting the tabletop. Then, with a pained little face, she clutched her forehead. Chi Yi looked away. Even he himself didn't notice the faint smile that appeared in his eyes. The next day, the main force made brief preparations and continued onward. This time they advanced deep into the mine shaft area. But just as they reached the entrance, the adjutant warned everyone about the venomous scorpion grass. The mine walls were covered with black, contaminated plants. This venomous scorpion grass was extremely aggressive. Even an S-class sentinel might not be able to retreat unscathed, let alone this many venomous scorpion grass plants. "Commander." Guide Kaiwan following along would definitely be attacked by the venomous thorns. Chi Yi heard this and looked toward Kaiwan behind the crowd. "Wait here for us." The other sentinels quickly placed some backpacks on the ground. "Guide Kaiwan, we appreciate you keeping an eye on our supplies. I'll watch over them." After a group of sentinels repeatedly expressed their thanks, they headed deep into the mine. They divided into over a dozen well-trained squads and swiftly fought their way in. Kaiwan's light brain, however, chose this moment to receive a message. It was a message from the Kai family. Her nominal father, Kai Yujo, an SSS-level psychic powerhouse in the star system, Sweetheart Wan Wan, just say the word, and I'll immediately have you transferred back. And strictly demand the Federation punish those 7 commanders. So what if they're the 7 strongest bases? Our Kai family holds the entire commercial lifeline of the star system. Half the Federation's bases have connections with me. Whoever dares to let my precious daughter suffer, I will definitely not let them off. Kai Wan felt a bit nervous inside. She only then remembered that this joint operation of the 7 major bases is the highest level special operation most closely watched by the Star Federation. But because of the original host's father's status and connections, the Federation specially set up a logistics support team for her. It would be fine if she didn't know she was an imposter. But she was the fake heiress who would soon be kicked out of the Kai family. Kai Wan opened her feedback panel. On it were all the feedback entries from the original host over the past 18 days. The original host's feedback from the first day. Kang Lin treated me disrespectfully. I demand he be replaced. Federation response. Respected Guide Kai Wan. Sentinel Commander Kang Lin is currently the only Super SSS class Sentinel in the galaxy. We particularly need him for this special operation. We apologize to you on behalf of Sentinel Commander Kang Lin. We will communicate the issue you reported with him and require him to treat you with more respect. We hope you can calm your anger. Original host's feedback on the second day. The accommodation conditions here are terrible. I demand everything be replaced with the latest models. Federation response. We will expedite and provide you, Guide Kai Wan, with the highest quality accommodation configuration. Estimated to be delivered by Starship within 1 day at the latest. Original host's feedback on the third day. These commanders are not cooperative enough. Is this the treatment an SSS class guide deserves? Federation response. We are very sorry, Guide Kai Wan. We will immediately contact all commanders and instruct them to be more obedient to you. Almost every day, the original host had something to complain about. The more Kai Wan read, the more her face burned with embarrassment. Not only did the original host commit every bad deed, but she also played the victim first. No wonder her nominal father was so angry he wanted to take his daughter back. He probably truly believed his precious daughter had suffered immense grievances here. Kai Wan could no longer find a point to criticize. She opened the latest feedback panel. Seriously editing now. Today, I took action with the Sentinels from Base C3. Everyone cooperated very happily. Commander Chi Yi is very impressive. Truly worthy of being a top-tier base in the galaxy. Keep it up. However, the message had just been sent. When Kai Wan sensed danger approaching, she suddenly turned around, only to see an enormous polluted tiger fiercely pouncing toward her. This polluted tiger was bigger than the ones from yesterday. She grabbed the Sentinel's bag and quickly ran into the cave. But the weight of 7 or 8 backpacks was really not light. It greatly hindered her movement all at once. In her panic, she fell heavily to the ground. Roar! The giant polluted tiger leaped up. The tiger's body slammed against the cave wall, shaking loose many pieces of rubble. Then it fiercely pounced toward Kai Wan's petite frame. At the critical moment, the massive snake body of Silver Mang, carrying formidable energy, swiftly rushed from deep within the mine. It swallowed and crushed the tiger's head in one bite. Chi Yi had rushed up almost as soon as he sensed the polluted tiger's appearance. Fortunately, he arrived in time. He reached out his hand to Kai Wan. Are you okay? Kai Wan's small face was still somewhat pale from the lingering fear. She placed her hand in his palm, wanting to get up. But she felt a wave of intense dizziness. Her brows slightly furrowed. Even the hand resting in his palm weakly began to fall. Chi Yi gripped her falling hand tightly, immediately noticing the patch of blood staining her leg. A venomous scorpion grass blackthorn creeping along the ground was slowly moving. She was stung. He immediately severed that blackthorn, picked her up and walked out. Commander, where are you going? Kai Wan, is something wrong with the guide? The sentinels rushing up from inside the mine shaft saw this and followed with concern. Kai Wan was in great distress. She felt herself being held, felt the firm, slightly cool skin she was pressed against. Yet it was very broad and gave a sense of security. But she simply couldn't open her eyes, suffocating in agony. Before finally losing consciousness, she felt the poison wound on her leg being sucked by warm lips. And in a hazy, blurred state, she seemed to hear Chi's voice saying, Kai Wan, I don't care who you are right now. Pull through this for me. And then Kai Wan sank into a long darkness. Host, wake up. Dying from a venomous scorpion grass sting is just too humiliating. Kai Wan's mind was foggy, only using her subconscious to converse with the system. Maybe dying is better. I don't want to be this wretched, vicious supporting female character anymore. I want to go back to school. I miss my mom and dad." As she spoke, she suddenly realized she couldn't remember the faces of those so-called parents at all. She felt her head splitting with pain. Not only could she not remember her parents' faces, she couldn't even remember her own appearance from the 21st century. Couldn't remember the name of her school? The faces of her classmates. Who was she, really? Where were her memories? The system's voice was uncharacteristically serious. "Hey, host, there are some things I should tell you. Even though I'm just a low-level, minor system, constantly rated the lowest due to poor performance, laziness, and a tendency to sleep on the job. For this mission, I originally only planned to scrape by with the minimum score, just keeping you alive. But even a slacker has dreams. If we give it a shot, maybe we can achieve a better ending." Kaiwan suddenly noticed a book appear in front of her. Its title was The Sentinel Guide Pairing, the Super Strong Guide and Her 7 Exceptional Sentinel Commanders. Kaiwan opened the novel. She was shocked to discover that the female protagonist in the novel was actually Kaiwan. Kaiwan, SSS class spiritual entity, with a phoenix as her spiritual entity. The only super strong guide possessing an SSS class combat power value. During a special mission for Alp Interstellar, she, along with 7 super strong sentinel commanders, went to planet A73 to participate in the operation. After experiencing many dangers and trials, she grew together with the 7 male protagonists into Super SSS class strongest beings and fell in love with them. The more she read, the more Kaiwan's hands trembled violently. Wasn't the female protagonist Jeek? Wasn't she herself the vicious supporting female character? Just as Kaiwan was puzzled, the words in the novel began to undergo earth-shattering changes. The black characters on the white paper floated up one by one, shattered and reassembled. The female protagonist's name was changed to Jeek, and Kaiwan became the utterly wicked, vicious supporting female character. The timing of the female protagonist's appearance was also altered. She appeared after the 7 male leads had all grown into Super SSS level sentinels, with her Super SSS level spiritual power and combat strength. As if carrying the halo of a female lead, she instantly captivated the 7 male leads. Kaiwan was so frightened she threw the book away. "Host, do you understand now? Actually, you have always been the female lead. But Jeek hired a powerful off-the-grid system with advanced algorithms, helping her alter the rules of this world, seizing your fate. Not only that, your spiritual body, background, luck, and abilities were all stripped away by her. And to prevent your appearance from ruining her plans, your soul was loaded into a 21st century mechanical virtual world. Meanwhile, a mechanical life was implanted into Kaiwan's body. A brainless, programmed, vicious female side character who only does evil deeds. This is also why this body, despite having SSS-level spiritual power, was a guide yet had no spiritual body. She simply did not have the soul of a living person. After digesting all of this, Kaiwan asked in shock, "You mean I am Kaiwan? And the previous Kaiwan was just a mechanical life?" "Yes, host. So you must hold on no matter what. This is the world that truly belongs to you." Kaiwan's will to survive became incredibly strong at this moment. This was her world. Even if everything had been taken from her, she could still start over from the beginning. There were still over 100 days until Jeek's arrival. If she works hard to improve her combat power during this period, and cleanse the negative impressions the male leads have of her, she can at least survive. Even without the background of the Kai family heiress or the luck of a female lead, she, Kaiwan, still wants to live on properly. A strong will to survive surged wildly like the source of life. She struggled to wake up. 3 doses of antidote have already been injected. No more can be administered. That's the adjutant's voice. "It's been 2 days, when will she wake up?" She's really holding everyone back. The cold, arrogant voice is deep and domineering. Right now, it carries a hint of impatience. That's King Lin's voice. "These past 2 days, Mine 031 has been marked and sealed off step by step as planned. Logically, she hasn't held up any progress. How rare. Chi-Yi, you're actually speaking up for her." When Kaiwan opened her eyes, what she saw was a rusty, abandoned ceiling. Her body felt terribly sore and weak. The toxins probably haven't been completely cleared yet. Guide Kaiwan is awake. At Jaime's call, the several people outside the door all looked in. The sentinel's tall stature was extremely imposing. Added to that, among them was the one she feared, King Lin. Kaiwan's brow furrowed. Her hand clutching the corner of the blanket tightened, knowing she was afraid of him. Kang Lin scoffed and strode away. His subordinates followed closely behind him as they left. Receiving Qi Yi's meaningful glance, the adjutant also left accordingly. Only Qi Yi and Kai Wan remained in the room. The situation has changed. A large number of high-level contaminated entities have been discovered in Zone 06. We need to head there with Base A1 to provide support. Your body. As he spoke, his gaze swept over her pale little face. I'm much better. I don't want to delay everyone. Kai Wan sprang to her feet. Who knew a wave of intense dizziness would suddenly strike? She became unsteady and was about to fall. But a large hand caught her by the waist. Kai Wan, caught off guard, tumbled into Qi's arms. Her nose was filled with the cold, astringent scent of snake musk from him. The posture was extremely like throwing herself into his embrace. Kai Wan's face flushed crimson. Her hands pressed against his chest, trying hard to put distance between them. She looked up at him in a fluster, meeting a pair of green eyes interwoven with light and shadow. Those eyes were lowered indifferently, revealing no emotion whatsoever. Guide Kai Wan, this is. He spoke slowly, his brow slightly raised. She stammered, trying to stand up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Who knew the next second? Qi Yi scooped Kai Wan up entirely. His lazy tone carried a hint of hoarseness. Considering your body hasn't fully recovered yet, I won't hold it against you this time. With that, he walked out. Being held like this, Kai Wan was indeed somewhat embarrassed. She buried her head in the crook of his shoulder, letting the dense hair hide her flushed little face. But these stray hairs scattered in Qi Yi's shoulder hollow. Yet they tickled his heart with a slight itch. Outside the building, the vehicle convoys from both bases were already fully prepared. After receiving Qi Yi's signal to depart, Kang Lin, who sauntered out leisurely, saw this scene, and a rather amused glint appeared in his eyes. A misophobic snake holding a guide is truly rare. Hearing Kang Lin's remark, Kai Wan only then realized with a start that Qi Yi had misophobia, and had even told her to stay 3 meters away from him. For a moment, she looked somewhat fearfully at his profile. Those large eyes, even in her peripheral vision, could not hide their focused seriousness, causing Qi Yi, who was holding her, to feel inexplicable ripples stir in his heart. After entering the troop compartment, Kai Wan was set down. Almost the moment her feet touched the ground, she sat at the other end of the vehicle cabin, maintaining a distance 3 meters away from Qi Yi, seeing her avoid him like snakes or scorpions. His hand movements paused slightly. In the end, he said nothing. This vehicle is so empty. Kang Lin, without a word, leaped aboard. Their A1 base vehicles were all fully occupied. He plopped down in the seat between the two of them. Seeing Kang Lin get on the vehicle, Kai Wan instinctively felt somewhat resistant. She shifted backward, her entire body almost pressed against the vehicle wall. What did you do to make her so afraid? As the vehicle gradually began to move, Qi's voice sounded abruptly. Kang Lin, leaning against the vehicle wall, cast his golden eyes over Kai Wan, then smiled nonchalantly. It was just forcing Kai Wan to guide and soothe once. Didn't expect Kai Wan's guide to respond to force, not kindness. Qi's green eyes turned a few degrees colder. His gaze swept over Kai Wan's face where she had bitten her lip. With just one glance, he read everything that had happened that day. The air pressure around him instantly dropped several degrees. His voice grew even more somber, forcibly entering her mental landscape when her body was extremely weak. Is this something a sentinel should do to a guide? Kang Lin's smile faded from the corner of his mouth. He lowered his eyes, his fingers tapping idly on his leg. Regarding her, I only feel that I was still too gentle at the time. Kai Wan was furious. But in the novel with Jeek as the female lead, Kai Wan as the supporting female character, indeed quickly became enemies with Kang Lin in the early stages. Kai Wan suppressed the anger in her heart, deciding it was better not to confront him head-on. But she wasn't of a weak disposition either. Just as she was about to speak to draw a clear line with Kang Lin, Qi's voice slowly sounded. Since Commander Kang detests her so much, she probably won't need to take rotations at the A1 base in the future, right? As if not expecting Qi Yi to say this. A flicker of interest arose in Kang Lin's eyes. Naturally. Well then, the rotation duty belonging to the A1 base will be transferred to my C3 base, Qi Yi said lazily, a barely perceptible curve lifting the corner of his mouth. Kang Lin scoffed and shook his head disdainfully. To have fought his way up from the power complex Qi family, relying on his identity as an illegitimate son, become the heir to the Qi family business. Commander Qi, I have always held you in high regard. But when it comes to judging people, you are really quite lacking. You're so noisy, a fierce voice tinged with anger. The two turned around to see Kai Wan glaring angrily at King Lin. Taller than the lookout tower. Arms thicker than the sewer pipes. A grown man, yet your mouth just goes on and on. The entire crew cabin is filled with your breath. King Lin's face instantly darkened significantly, then turned from dark to green. She said he has bad breath. King Lin looked at Chi Yi with furious eyes, only to see him just propping his forehead, lowering his eyes, staying silent there. But no matter how you looked, a hint of hidden laughter was in his eyes. The vehicle stopped at this moment. Kai Wan quickly opened the cabin door and got out, even using her small hand to fan pretentiously beside her nose, as if she had just suffered some biochemical odor attack. The next second, Chi Yi also got out of the vehicle. The outside air was indeed better. The polluted mist was better than the air inside the purified vehicle cabin. Isn't this just openly mocking him? Kang Lin's face darkened another degree. Li Su, inside the temporarily established safe zone, seeing Kang Lin and Chi Yi followed by Kai Wan. Her expression uncontrollably cooled several degrees. Incident location, Lost Forest. Conservative estimate is a level 7 contaminant. Its abilities are bizarre and unpredictable, and controlling and commanding a large number of polluted entities. Kang Lin regained some composure. He crossed his arms and looked at the marked points of the polluted entities synchronized by Li Su. In the light brain, it is highly likely to be protecting the pollution source. Generally, high-level polluted entities guard the area around a pollution source. Proceed according to the old rules, kill our way in. No problem, the terrain here is rugged and covers a large area. Everyone, bring sufficient supplies and be prepared for continuous combat. With this statement from Li Su, the people from the 3 bases all began preparing supplies. All guides are positioned at the front of the team. I don't need her. 1 SS class and 1 S class guide is enough. After checking their own team, Li Su coldly said without even glancing at Kai Wan's side. The guides in our team are also sufficient. Kang Lin looked at the 2 SS class guides behind him. This made Kai Wan's rival seem somewhat redundant. Chi Yi lowered his gaze to look at the little one behind him who seemed somewhat dejected. You stay with me the entire time. Kai Wan looked up at him. His words gave her immense affirmation and a sense of being needed. She tightened her grip on the gun in her hand. She would go all out to let him know his choice was not wrong. The large force began advancing toward the Lost Forest. However, not long after advancing, a large number of albino-polluted bats suddenly appeared, breaking through the polluted mist and attacking everyone. These small, dense polluted flying entities are the most troublesome for sentinels. Once bitten by them, there is even a risk of losing one's life. Kai Wan immediately released her mental barrier at full strength to protect the sentinel team at C3 base. She knows when to lay low. But when it comes to fighting, she is absolutely uncompromising. Not only did her mental web cover every sentinel at C3 base, she also constantly monitored the status of the main combat force, Chi Yi, and his adjutant. As a result, the sentinels of C3 base displayed the most formidable combat power. They took the lead, quickly surpassing A1 base and A3 base, becoming the main force. Group soothing. Combat power value increased. Group soothing. Combat power value increased. Group soothing. Combat power value increased. Seeing C3 base so powerful, the other 2 bases cast envious glances their way. The dark-skinned sentinel raised an eyebrow at them smugly. See that, brothers? This is the power of an SSS glass guide. This statement made many sentinels begin to feel suspicious. Since arriving here, Kai Wan had always been very stingy with her psychic energy. Nothing like the generosity she was showing now. This was also the first time he had truly witnessed the might of an SSS glass psychic guide. After eliminating a large number of polluted white bats, they reached the severely contaminated area of mutated plants. The former trees, shrubs, and flowers had all mutated. It looks like only a few of us will have to clear the path first. Both Li Su and Chi Yi agreed with Kang Lin's words. They each took guides from their teams and moved forward together to clear the path. Kai Wan just kept following behind Chi Yi like that. Those contaminated plants sensed the approach of humans. Thick vines twisted and entangled, as if vibrant life had revived. Kang Lin was the first to open fire. With both guns in hand, he aimed at the roots of the vines and fired continuously. The web-like vines withered instantly after losing their roots. However, the ground suddenly trembled. Grotesque, ash-green contaminated monsters of various shapes emerged from the ground and lunged at the group. Li Su's manifested spiritual black lion roared and charged forward. Its lion claws, like a massive mountain pressing down, instantly tore apart to contaminated beings. At the same time, Chi's silver python was as powerful as thunder. Its combat strength was extremely formidable. An awe-inspiring dragon's roar seemed to descend from the heavens. Immediately after, a colossal black gold dragon flew overhead. Its body so vast it blotted out the sky and sun. Kaiwan quickly constructed a spiritual barrier and carefully sensed the spiritual fluctuations of every sentinel. At the first sign of disturbance, she immediately soothed it. At this moment, her instincts as a guide made her forget the earlier team division. She only wanted to protect everyone's spiritual bodies. Her spiritual power was too strong, to the point that the spiritual barriers of other SS glass guides became utterly unnoticeable. After the fiercest contaminated giant tree fell, the massive dragon body couldn't dodge in time and was grazed, losing large patches of skin. Dragon scales scattered all over the ground. Kang Lin, in pain, retreated to the rear. The next instant, he felt his spiritual body being healed and soothed by a powerful spiritual force. He looked toward Kaiwan, only to see her standing at the back of the team, healing him with a serious expression. But perhaps his gaze was too sharp. It pulled her out of her focused work mode. Startled to realize she was actually healing Kang Lin, Kaiwan immediately withdrew her spiritual power, even wrinkling her nose in annoyance, finding it very unlucky. Kang Lin's face turned cold. The spiritual dragon, deprived of the guide's soothing, became listless again. The base's accompanying S-Glass guide promptly continued the healing. But with the previous gem of SSS Glass spiritual power, the golden dragon was clearly very dissatisfied with the S-Glass spiritual power. Its tail swept impatiently to express displeasure. Chi-Yi glanced at the information detected by the pollution detector on his light brain. The pollution source should be just ahead, not far away. Everyone quickly chased to the outside of a shattered underground structure. The pollution source was located underground. Kang Lin's tone was utterly certain. Li Su stepped forward 2 paces. His curved blade slashed past one side of the rust-covered large door. Charge in and kill. Kang Lin took the lead, rushing down. Instantly, dense swarms of polluted entities inside the factory surged up. Bang bang, all the sentinels opened fire and swept the area. The entire underground space was filled with the smell of gunpowder from bullet friction. Kaiwan kept her head down, concentrating intently on her work. She was very safe behind the sentinels, could fully devote 100% to spiritual power operation. The battle lasted a full 10+ minutes. When the entire underground space was filled with corpses and black blood, only a few not yet dead heads and severed limbs remained scattered on the ground. The high-level contaminated entity controlling these polluted beings was right behind the door. Following Li Su's words, Kang Lin directly kicked open the iron door. Boom! The final iron door collapsed with a crash. The high-level contaminated entity inside the room revealed its true form. It was an infected sentinel. It suddenly opened its mouth, instantly releasing a large amount of purple mist. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Kang Lin immediately whispered in a low voice. It's an ability, mental hallucination. Retreat quickly. The mental hallucination ability of a contaminated entity. Even he, an Ultra SSS level sentinel, if affected, couldn't break free by himself. Everyone quickly retreated backward. But the hallucinatory mist spread extremely fast. Almost instantly, it enveloped a large portion of the sentinel team. Kaiwan, who had been flung a distance away by the snake's tail, had no time to thank Chi-Yi. Panicked, she fled for her life among the crowd. She watched helplessly as Li Su swiftly ran past her. His height and long legs made his speed almost twice hers. And he scooped up one guide and one sentinel. The black lion materialized from his spiritual body. Even picked up another guide in its mouth. Only she was not rescued. Kaiwan transformed her grief and indignation into motivation. If he wouldn't save her, she would save herself. Summoning the explosive power of a 100-meter sprint, she barely managed to dash out. At the very last moment, they erected the temporary defensive wall. While leaning on his knees and gasping for breath, Kaiwan realized with a shock that only a small number of people had managed to run out. Even Kang Lin and Chi-Yi hadn't made it out. Most of the sentinels were trapped in the hallucinatory mist. On the other side, the sentinels and guides who had successfully escaped were anxiously crowding around Li Su. Commander Li, what should we do now? No sentinel can awaken from the hallucinatory mist through self-awareness alone. For sentinels whose mental energy is highly prone to agitation, the hallucinatory mist is a death trap. Li Su understood this all too well. Because it invades the sentinel's mental energy. It traps the victim's spiritual body forever in the most terrifying and painful memory, repeatedly tormenting their mental energy till it is exhausted to death. Now, we can only rely on the guides to save as many as possible. I will contact the Alliance to dispatch more guides. With a heavy expression, Li Su opened his optical computer and began calling the Alliance headquarters. The two SS-level guides who had escaped successfully started to exert their mental energy. Sensing the sentinels within the hallucinatory mist, Kaiwan glanced at the thick hallucinatory mist, closed her eyes and released her mental energy with full force. For a moment, her formidable mental energy spread out fine and dense, unraveling thread by thread as it diffused into the hallucinatory mist. She clearly sensed every sentinel trapped in the hallucinatory mist. Without exception, they all wore expressions of agony, some even weeping bitterly. And at the end of the psychedelic mist, the high-level contaminated being bound by iron chains wore a triumphant smile on its face. Finally, Kaiwan sensed Chiyu in the farthest corner through psychic perception. Compared to the suffering of others, he simply stood there with his eyes quietly closed. As if merely trapped, Kaiwan felt a surge of joy in her heart, thinking his dream shouldn't be as painful. It should be easy to rescue him. Without a second thought, she used all her psychic power to invade his mental landscape. As if traveling through time and space, Kaiwan suddenly saw several youths cheering, screaming toward an arena. And within the arena enclosed by iron bars, several contaminated beings were a little boy. From the boy's features, one could vaguely recognize him as the young Chi-Yi. In his tender eyes at this moment, one could still see an extreme hatred and a fierce determination to survive. These contaminated beings are so useless. Replace them with higher level ones. 5 days without food or water and he can still fight contaminated beings. The bastard really has a tough life. In the spectator stands, the faces of several little brats made Kaiwan physically uncomfortable. They ate pastries and fruits carefully prepared by servants, while cruelly discussing ways to torture him. Cut off one of his arms, then throw him back in. The plumpest little brat leading them shouted. Immediately, I saw the housekeeper send someone to break one of Young Chi's arms. Then they threw him back into the beast fighting cage. This time, there were more contaminated creatures. Let's see how he survives. If he dies by the hands of the contaminated creatures, father won't blame us. Ha 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 ha. Look, he got stabbed by a contaminated creature. The boy's mocking voices were like saws cutting into Kaiwan's ears. She didn't dare look at the scene inside the arena. Even from the corner of her eye, she could feel his intense pain and cries for help. But no one saved him. After an unknown length of time, amidst a burst of cheers, Kaiwan, pale-faced, gathered her courage to look. She saw the young Chi-Yi had already collapsed in a pool of blood. His body was covered everywhere with wounds torn by contaminated creatures. Kaiwan called his name loudly, but he couldn't hear her voice at all. In an instant, Kaiwan felt despair and powerless. Kaiwan tried to harness her psychic power to destroy this world. She strained until her head was drenched in sweat, strained until every muscle in her body was taut, watching helplessly as time passed second by second. Watching as the housekeeper led the coroner's team into the arena. Deceased, Chi-Yi, Chi family's illegitimate child, 11 years old. 131 wounds on the body. Left arm dislocated. Long-term malnutrition. After countless attempts and failures, Kaiwan watched helplessly as Chi-Yi was loaded onto a corpse transport vehicle as a dead body. In that moment, she broke down. With her last heavy, tear-choked cry, she shouted his name. And then the world completely collapsed. A massive surge of mental power, like a tidal wave, drove away all the hallucinatory mist. All the sentinels trapped within the hallucinatory mist regained clarity. When Kaiwan opened her eyes again, what she saw was the completely dissipated hallucinatory mist behind the glass protective wall. Li Su withdrew his gaze from looking at Kaiwan. Uncontrollable shock was in the depths of his eyes. But clearly, they had no time to discuss anything now. All the sentinels charged inside. The hallucinatory mist was shattered by Kaiwan's mental power. The high-level contaminated entity died from the backlash. All the sentinels began clearing the massive contamination source behind it. Kaiwan then quietly asked the guide beside her. Hello, may I ask? How long did I just take? After all, within Chi's memories, she had struggled for nearly a day at the very least. Very quickly, almost less than 3 minutes. Suddenly, Kaiwan realized she was enveloped by a large shadow. She looked up, meeting a pair of obscure, unfathomable green eyes. She wasn't sure if it was her imagination, but she felt those eyes held a few more emotions than before. I always thought that was an auditory hallucination. Kaiwan couldn't hear clearly. Her puzzled little face leaned in a bit closer. What did you say? Being closer now. Her mental power mixed with the scent emanating from him lingered at the tip of Chi's nose. The light that broke through the mist felt just moments ago when trapped in painful memories. Her mental power had already taken on a different meaning in his heart. For the first time in his life, he was easily driven into a bonding fever simply by a guide's mere proximity. His pair of green eyes darkened a few shades. He no longer looked at her excessively beautiful eyes. Imperceptibly, he created distance between them. But in Kai Wan's eyes, this behavior was him having a cleanliness obsession and rejecting her closeness. She pursed her lips. Very understandingly, she distanced herself from him and busied herself with her own tasks. Suddenly, everyone's light brain rang with an incoming call. Li Su quickly opened it. Commander Li. The convoy here is under attack by a large number of polluted entities. At least several hundred. Among them is a high-level spatial ability polluted entity. It has taken all our vehicles. Hearing this, the Sentinel's expressions instantly changed variously. Synchronized positioning markers. We will get there as soon as possible. After speaking, Li Su looked at everyone. Quickly clean up the scene and rush back to support. And the three commanders began the usual action summary. To ensure fairness, after each pollution source eradication, the commanders participating in the action must, according to rank from high to low, upload the names of 10 personnel, excluding those from their own base, who contributed the most. This kind of action summary directly affects each base and individual's total contribution value in this A73 operation. Without a second thought, Chi filled in Kai Wan's name in the first place slot. Busy as she was, Kai Wan received the notification from her light brain immediately. Her contribution points had actually increased, although it was only a rise of a few thousand places from the very bottom. It was no longer the pitiful 0. A flicker of joy rose in her heart. Her intuition told her it was Chi Yi. At that moment, Chi Yi was leaning there, talking with Kang Lin and the others about something. The next second, Kai Wan saw Kang Lin, who was facing Chi Yi, glance sideways at her. Their gazes collided. Kai Wan's first reaction was rejection. She turned her head away and continued with her own tasks. Kang Lin let out a heavy breath. His brow furrowed slightly. You're right, one thing is one thing. This time, she truly deserves this first place. Immediately after, Chi Yi shifted his gaze to Li Su. The latter's sharply defined face held a certain coldness, as if remembering something. His tone was hard and heavy as he said, impossible. With that, he turned and walked away from there. Kang Lin was not at all surprised by this. But he noticed Chi's thoughtful gaze. While lowering his head to continue filling in details on his light brain, he explained in a low voice. You weren't part of the operation 3 days ago. That day, because Kai Wan didn't construct a psychic barrier and refused to help, letting people die. It resulted in Li Su losing 3 subordinates. After saying this, he looked up at Chi Yi. His words were laced with sarcasm. Chi Yi, did she slip you a love potion? You changed your opinion of her so quickly. Chi Yi still leaned lazily against the wall. No need for you to remind a mind-reading psychic. I actually forgot you have mind-reading abilities. Then Commander Chi must have read that she has some unspeakable difficulty, to the extent that she had to humiliate and cause the death of innocent sentinels. And do those utterly despicable things, right? Kang Lin said with a sneer. The sudden chill around him made him look again at Chi Yi before him. His green eyes were already extremely cold. The spiritual entity above his head faintly materialized due to his displeasure. A silver python constructed from spiritual energy. Its pair of vertical pupils sent chills down one's spine. But Kang Lin had never been afraid of anything. He merely smiled faintly. If you want to protect her, I have no objection. But if she causes anyone's death again in the future, I will be the first to not let her off. More than 10 minutes later, after the battlefield was cleared, the main force quickly regrouped and set off. Kai Wan struggled to keep up within the sentinel ranks. The recent battle had nearly depleted all her mental energy, coupled with her body not fully recovering from the poisoning. Her legs felt increasingly unsteady. Just as her steps faltered, she felt a large hand support her waist. Immediately after, her body was lifted effortlessly and placed onto the giant snake's back. She instantly perked up, turning her head to look at Chi Yi beside her. The adjutant and the others were completely dumbfounded. Their commander actually let someone else ride his spiritual entity. You should know his cleanliness obsession is famous. Passing through the lost forest, the sentinels waiting in the temporary safe zone hurriedly ran over. Commander, you're finally here. We lost track. They ran into the old city district with complex terrain. There are many underground structures there. The deeper ones even go down more than 10 levels. Several of our brothers even got lost inside. Li Su glanced at Kang Lin and Qi Yi, said seriously, take us there. The old city district of the Lost City, formerly a large underground processing plant. The terrain is intricate and complex, like a large ant nest. As soon as the group arrived at the entrance to the underground building area, they bumped into a sentinel. He was sweating profusely. Commander, we've discovered two more high-level contaminated entities, all heading underground. The few exchanged glances, immediately decided to split up and pursue. Kang Lin took the people from base A1 to chase south, while Qi Yi, Li Su, and others went north. Because the snake body is not easy to move on stairs, Qi's spiritual entity, the silver python, was put away. Can you manage? Although his face still showed no emotion, Kai Wan could still sense his concern. She nodded. Without the slightest affectation, she followed the main group. As they went deeper, Kai Wan saw corpses in various states of death. Among them were human sentinels and contaminated entities. Such a strong, putrid stench of blood and decay. Kai Wan's discomfort grew even more severe. For a moment, her stomach also churned violently. Feeling so unwell, her whole body turned cold. By now, Qi Yi, due to his status as commander, had already rushed to the very front of the team, while her mobility, becoming increasingly sluggish, fell further and further behind. In the dim environment, everyone was anxiously hurrying along. No one noticed her condition, so that gradually, Kai Wan had somewhat fallen behind the main force, only barely keeping up at the very end of the line. Her vision grew somewhat blurry, her hands tightly gripping the rust-stained handrail. Gradually, she heard intense sounds of fighting coming from below. The sounds of gunfire mixed with the clashing of blades, and the shouts of the sentinels. They had engaged the corrupted. Kai Wan bit her tongue, relying on the pain to stay alert, and quickly followed down. They were fighting. She could not be absent. She forced herself to provide the sentinels with the strongest possible mental barrier, acutely and immediately soothing any sentinel on the field whose mind was in turmoil. Then, more corrupted surged up from below. It actually showed a gushing, eruptive momentum. Too many corrupted. Fall back to both sides first. Hearing Qi's shout, Kai Wan immediately followed the troops in retreating backward. Only in the chaos, her head grew somewhat dizzy again. She didn't pay attention to which base's group she was following. After retreating to another space, she then realized she was following Li Su's A3 base. A3 it is then. Following any base is the same. Kai Wan quickly caught up. They ran onto the floating walkway and saw a huge high-level contaminated entity rapidly running on the walkway below. That high-level contaminated entity was clearly somewhat panicked. It was releasing signals, continuously summoning other contaminated entities to protect it, while it itself fled madly. However, right at this moment, another high-level contaminated entity charged out. Its shape was bizarre. Its 3-meter-tall body was like black mud, its features indistinguishable. At the same time, the iron door on the other side suddenly burst open. A large number of contaminated entities rushed out. They launched a frenzied attack on the sentinels. The scene was extremely chaotic. But with Kai Wan's assistance, the sentinel team could still manage to trade blows with the contaminated entities. The intelligent high-level contaminated entity immediately sensed that a high-level guide was aiding these sentinels. Its originally 3-meter-tall body instantly turned into a pool of sludge, moving eerily across the rust-stained ground. In the darkness, the sentinel struggled to detect its traces. Kai Wan's heart raced. Intuition told her it was coming for her. She frantically retreated backward. Without a searchlight, she ran blindly and slammed straight into a hard chest. A strong masculine hormonal scent rushed into her nostrils. Unlike Qi's cold and astringent tone, Li Su's aura was firm and steady. He did not even glance at Kai Wan. Swinging his blade, he struck at the high-level contaminated entity pouncing towards him. Kai Wan hastily dodged away. Turning her head, she saw the contaminated entity forced back several meters by the force of his blade. It then transformed into a puddle of soft mud attempting to escape. At the same time, the iron doors on the other wall shattered open one after another. Countless contaminated entities surged out. The spatial-type contaminated entity has been killed by me. You all escape from here. I will pursue that high-level one. It was the commander. With this single command from Li Su, hundreds of sentinels immediately turned and ran. Meanwhile, Li Su charged downwards against the flow of people. Kai Wan wanted to stay and help, but was pulled upwards by a sentinel as they ran. Guide Kai Wan, run quickly. There are too many contaminated entities here. The commander cannot spare the effort to protect you. Deeply feeling his words made sense. Kaiwan followed the crowd, quickly running upwards. However, they had just descended to floors when they encountered another batch of contaminated entities. Some of the sentinels continued upwards to evacuate, while others stayed at the rear of the group to intercept and kill the contaminated entities. And because Kaiwan was running at the very back, she naturally shouldered the responsibility of helping these sentinels fight the contaminated entities. But she was simply too exhausted from the prolonged battle. Her body was already pushed beyond its limits, utterly depleted. Her body, having been poisoned by scorpion grass toxin, was fragile and weak. Amidst the chaotic sounds of battle, Kaiwan tightly gripped the handrail, kneeling on the steps. Several 5th-tier combatants are too powerful. Retreat first, I'll cover the rear. Run, quickly. She faintly heard the sentinel's shouts. It's a psychic attack. Guide Kaiwan. I need a psychic barrier. Among the many voices, this one was particularly clear. Sensing the sentinel's call for her, Kaiwan struggled to lift her head. Her vision was currently foggy, as if shrouded in a mist, and her psychic energy was extremely chaotic at this moment. She strained to try and coalesce her psychic power, but couldn't manage to gather it at all. Hold on. Where is Guide Kaiwan? Wasn't she behind us? Why isn't she helping us? That's Kaiwan. This isn't the first or second time she's been like this. Don't count on her, let's retreat. The commander is here. Great, we're saved. In the battle ahead, a surge of formidable energy suddenly appeared. It was Li Su. The corrupted entities were instantly decimated with heavy casualties. A large number of sentinels retreated upward under cover. When Kaiwan used all her strength to stand up, she happened to meet the gazes of several sentinels charging up. Seeing her standing by idly, a flash of disgust passed through their eyes. They quickly brushed past her and charged forward. The last one to come up was Li Su. In front of him, a sentinel was already severely injured and unconscious, being escorted upward by 2 sentinels. Seeing the unconscious sentinel, Kaiwan's face turned pale. The sentinel who had called out to her felt the disgust in Li Su's gaze as he looked at her. She pressed her lips tightly together, lowered her eyes, and remained silent. Her small hand gripping the railing clenched exceptionally tight, almost to the point of drawing blood. Li Su walked toward her step by step. The pressure in his eyes almost seemed to swallow her whole. Kaiwan, enduring dizziness and physical discomfort, retreated backward. Her pale face appeared even ghastlier in the dim light. Li Su's voice was endlessly cold. You are not welcome to participate in any future operations of the A3 base. The farther you stay from the A3 base, the better. Having said that, he strode away, his figure swift as the wind, not waiting for her. Kaiwan wanted to move upward, but her feet could no longer move even half a step. Her vision plunged completely into darkness, and her entire body tumbled down the stairs. Qi Yi and Kang Lin, waiting outside, saw Li Su, who finally emerged. Kang Lin, having already received the message on his optical computer, was the first to walk over. Let me see the rumored spatial-type crystal. Li Su opened his palm. On it lay the crystal dropped by the high-level spatial contaminant he had just killed. Seeing this, Kang Lin's lips curled into a smile. Who knows how many contribution points this thing will be priced at? If the refinement succeeds. Qi's voice was extremely cold, interrupting their conversation. Where is Kaiwan? This sentence served as a reminder to everyone. Kaiwan was actually not in the team. Li Su didn't care at all. He crushed the crystal of the spatial-type ability-polluted entity in his palm. As it shattered in an instant, a large number of light-armored vehicles appeared on the ground. The crushed crystal then condensed and restored itself again. Li Su wanted to get in the vehicle, but the car door was firmly held down by Qi Yi. His gaze toward him was extremely cold. I ask you, where is Kaiwan? Li Su's grayish-brown eyes stared directly into Qi's cold, harsh green eyes. His low voice was flat and emotionless. The duty to protect her shouldn't belong to our A3 base, should it? This time's guide assignment. She was assigned to the C3 base. Sentinels naturally have the duty to protect guides. Don't say she followed and assisted you all the way. Assist? Li Su let out a cold laugh. He withdrew his hand that was about to open the car door, turned sideways to look at his unconscious subordinate being helped into the light-armored vehicle. On the other side, his tone grew even colder. If at that time, instead of her staying behind, it had been another guide helping, my subordinate wouldn't have been injured. The other sentinels didn't dare get involved in matters between the commanders. They all pretended to be mute, packing up equipment and entering the armored vehicles. Kang Lin, meanwhile, crossed his arms and leaned against the vehicle, watching the two with great interest. Chi Yi completely didn't believe Li Su's words. Although it was only about 3 days of interaction, he was completely convinced that Kai Wan was no longer the previous Kai Wan. Seeing Chi's visible concern with the naked eye, Li Su couldn't help but sneer. I didn't do anything to her. She hasn't come out for so long. Probably doesn't want to travel with us. And called her father to complain again. The next second, his collar was grabbed by Chi Yi. His tone was a fierceness he had never heard before. She was just poisoned. Her body hasn't recovered yet. Lead the way, I'm going to find her. Hearing his words, Li Su withdrew the mockery in his eyes. He shook off Chi's hand gripping him, and looked towards Kang Lin, who had put away his spectator expression and suddenly turned serious. The latter also seemed to think of something and nodded seriously at this moment. Indeed, the scorpion grass toxin caused a 2-day coma. Logically, she shouldn't have recovered yet. Scorpion grass toxin. Any normal guide who gets hit would need at least 5 or 6 days of treatment. Not to mention she just broke through the hallucinatory mist, expending so much mental energy. At this moment, Kai Wan's excessively pale face flashed through Li Su's mind. He had thought she was just afraid of him at the time, and didn't say another word. Realizing that Kai Wan might truly be in danger this time, Li Su quickly turned and ran back into the underground factory. Chi Yi closely followed him inside. Kang Lin also followed behind them, his expression unusually serious. The sentinels who had gotten into the vehicles nearby, seeing their commanders all entering the building, were also left utterly confused. Can only wait in place. 12th floor underground. Host, wake up. The contaminated bodies underground are crawling here. Please wake up and get out of here quickly. Kai Wan tried to open her heavy eyes, but she didn't have any strength at all. Host, please wake up quickly. This is the final mission concerning whether I can become a regular. You can't die at this moment. If you die now, not only will my mission fail, it will be a complete negative score. I might even be directly expelled from the system registry. Kai Wan struggled to open her eyes. The sound of contaminated bodies climbing from downstairs grew closer. She mustered all her strength to reach out and grabbed a piece of rusty iron sheet, propping up her weak body to sit up. She tried to stand, but didn't have any strength at all. Ha ha ha. The contaminated bodies made thick, phlegmy sounds in their throats. These contaminated bodies, whose legs were severed by the sentinels, were all stretching out their ash-green, skeleton-like arms to climb the steps. Kai Wan gripped the handrail tightly and tried to get up again. Still failed. Amid the system's constant encouragement, she was so anxious that tears welled up in her eyes. System, I'm so useless. I'm sorry for causing you to fail to become a regular. Her choked words plunged the system into a brief silence as well. After a brief silence, it comforted her. Don't blame yourself, host. At most, I just won't be this system anymore. I was already the least capable and the laziest. Not being able to become permanent is what I deserve. But at this moment, I truly hope you live on well. The system's words gave Kai Wan strength in this moment. Even though her grip on the iron piece was weak, there was not a trace of cowardice or retreat in her. Ha ha ha. The polluted beings were thrilled by the scent of humans. The first one crawling over stretched out its long, withered branch-like arm and lunged at Kai Wan. Kai Wan picked up a stone and threw it into its mouth. The polluted being, hurt and enraged, swung out and sent Kai Wan flying several meters. She slammed heavily against a sheet metal wall, fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a broken doll, she could no longer move an inch. System, if you get expelled from the system registry, do you have anywhere to go? Who would have thought that even at a time like this? She was actually worried about its fate. The system choked up a little. As if resolving itself, it was just about to speak, when a short knife came spinning down from the walkway above. Shoom, the blade straightened and pierced the lead polluted being's skull. All Kai Wan saw in the end was a giant serpent body like a storm, shattering everything. And then she completely lost consciousness. Her small body curled up in a filthy corner, pitiful enough to make one's heart ache. A single glance was enough to make Li Su's eyes flicker, even though she had committed numerous evil deeds before. At this moment, seeing this scene, he too felt remorseful. Kang Lin did not speak. He just leaned against the railing, chewing gum, lowering his gaze, quietly watching everything below. The two watched as Chi Yi killed a large number of contaminated beings in an instant. Holding Kai Wan in his arms, he brushed past them. The girl in his arms was covered in bloodstains. Her face was as pale as paper. as if she were dead. Or perhaps still alive.